Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory Nikke video. We just got the kits revealed for our two new bunnies, Milk and Aid, so make sure you subscribe so you don't forget the video for Aid when it comes out right after this. But this video is all about Milk, so let's take a look at her kit. It looks really interesting. It's definitely very unique, and I'm kind of excited for it. The absolute units were a little bit of a letdown, if I'm going to be honest, and I think everyone's always hyped for bunnies. This is a very exciting event for most of the players, and it looks like they are going to be delivering the goods. Never mind all the great bunny skins that we're getting and reruns for newer players as well. But the new units look pretty sick. So she is a burst 3 attacker with a sniper rifle, code Iron. She has a standard ammo capacity of 6, reload time of 2 seconds, charge time of 1 second, and that's all like very standard kind of stuff. Let's see what her actual skills do. So skill 1, embarrassment suppression. This whole like embarrassed over like confident kind of thing is kind of an amusing gimmick, but it definitely suits Milk's character. It stays very true to what she is originally. So activates when performing full charge attacks, affects self, gains pierce for 6 seconds. Okay, so anytime she does a full charge, she's going to get pierce for 6 seconds. Pierce is very, very good. I've said this so many times. Pierce is one of the best abilities in the game. You look at units like Snow White. The whole reason why she's so good is because her burst pierce, although time has kind of passed her by at this point. Red Hood is super cracked because of pierce when you can go through multiple body parts or the core and the body. Pierce is just a very, very, very powerful ability. And then it says activates when full charge lasts 0.5 seconds or more and self is not in embarrassment state, affects self. She gains embarrassment. Okay, so before I read what embarrassment actually does, I want to address what this full charge thing does. So when I first read this, I thought that this was meaning when it takes more than a half a second to full charge, she would gain these effects. Now, the standard full charge takes 1 second, so I was like, all right, well, that's just going to be every time she does a full charge. So basically, maybe you want a manual to quick charger to keep from getting this effect. But none of that is true. I kept reading, and then I realized you do want all these effects to happen. And instead of meaning if it takes 0.5 seconds to reach full charge, it means if you hold that full charge for 0.5 seconds. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but this is how I believe this is interpreted. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident that this means if you're holding full charge, so, it takes a minute, the meter goes up to full charge, and then you wait another half a second, and then you release, this is going to trigger. So it says it has multiple effects, so 5 effects, affects all enemies, deals 290% of final attack as distributed damage. Okay, so 290% of final attack as distributed damage is great. Obviously, if that's a boss, it's only going to hit that one target. Remember, distributed damage means it divides up whatever that damage total is amongst all enemies on the field, or at least whatever enemies are like in the effect range of that ability. So 290% of final attack. So the more copies you have of her, the better gear you have, the more buffs, etc. That's going to increase that final attack stat. That's going to be quite a bit of damage. That's definitely a big hit. And then effect 2 says effect self removes 100% of bullets. So she does a bunch of distributed damage, but then she completely empties her clip. She doesn't get to shoot anymore. Reload speed is reduced to 50%. So she's going to have a slow reload. It only applies for the next reload. And then she has to reload. I mean, that makes sense because she lost all her bullets anyway. And then attack goes up by 118.7% for 40 seconds. Okay, this is an insane attack buff, okay? When we see other really high attack buffs, such as leaders, like 60-something%, we've seen other units give as high of like 70% attack buff. These are some of the best things in the game. She's buffing herself by 118%. This is a massive attack buff, and it lasts for 40 seconds, which is basically the entire burst cycle. Because keep in mind, she's a burst 3, she's going to have a cooldown of 40 seconds. So between every burst, she's going to get an entire cycle, and that's with any cooldown reduction, by the way. So if you have cooldown reduction, this attack buff can go into your burst cycle as well for 40 seconds. That is huge. This might be one of the hardest hitting units we've seen as far as just like doing her normal attack with an attack buff. That doesn't mean her total damage is going to be more than anybody else, but just to keep that attack buff in perspective, that's really, really nuts. And then her skill 2 says Outburst activates only when in embarrassment status, affects self, pierce damage goes up by 64.7% continuously. Okay, so when she has all those other things, that triggers if you hold the burst for 0.5 seconds. Sorry, you hold the full charge for 0.5 seconds. She's going to get a pierce damage up effect of 64%. So again, pierce is super good. She gets a pierce every time she does full charge from that skill 1. Again, this is going to be super, super good. Anytime you're able to pierce through multiple parts or like the core and a body, it's going to be very, very strong. 64% on pierce damage is no joke. Now, the second part of it says activates only when in overconfident status. Affects all enemies every 2 seconds. And overconfident comes from her burst, which we'll read in a second. So 447% of final attack as distributed damage is a very big attack. Again, distributed damage, if you're hitting adds, that's going to be less damage to each of them, but that's a big hit on a single target boss. This could be pretty good against Mother Whale, by the way, so just keep that in mind. Of course, it's going to depend on what that particular Mother Whale that you're fighting, what their elemental status is. Remember, Milk is iron, so just keep that in mind. So now let's take a look at her burst. So affects self, overconfident, gains. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's what it says, guys. That's what it says. Gains immunity to embarrassment for 10 seconds. So all that stuff from her first skill isn't going to work for 10 seconds, but her pierce damage is going to go up 117% for 10 seconds. So basically getting double the pierce damage effect that she would have normally. And her attack is going to go up 220% for 10 seconds, which is just an insane attack buff. Like, I mean, it's like almost double what the insane attack buff is from embarrassment that I was saying. So that's going to last for 10 seconds. Pretty crazy, pretty crazy. So let's talk about how you actually want to use her. There's been a lot of chatter online about having to manual milk, and yes, to get optimal use out of her, in some cases, you will have to manual her, okay? But basically, she's, gonna go through the kind of like normal cycle, shooting, she gets, whatever happens, the burst goes off, she gets her insane buffs, and then after that wears off, so after 10 seconds, when she's no longer immune to embarrassment, you'll wanna hold one manual shot just a little bit longer. Remember, it's a half a second that you have to hold that whole charge for. She'll get the embarrassment buffs, and then you can just let her do her thing. You can auto for the rest of it. Once she bursts again, then you'll hold one shot for a little bit longer, and then auto, etc., etc. Okay, so you do need to be paying attention. Every now and then, I feel like we've been seeing more and more units like this, where Shift Up will put in a unit that is like mostly auto friendly, but you just kind of need to pay attention to do a manual here and there. So like we just saw this with E-Leg, where you want to burst with her like one time, but otherwise you're just going to like auto burst and keep her off burst. Things like that, where you just need to like occasionally take a manual action, but otherwise they can kind of go on autopilot. So you don't want to just be like quick charging with her all the time. You don't want to be holding that burst all the time, but one time after a burst, gain all the embarrassment buffs, let her do her thing, go through a whole burst cycle. Then the next time after she bursts again, hold one shot a little longer. Now, remember I said you'll need to do this in some cases. And that's because sometimes a unit will just naturally hold their full burst longer. And the reason why this happens is because targets move around, okay? And the auto aiming doesn't just instantly like zip. It doesn't like full on lock to an enemy. The crosshair will move relatively slowly. And so if the boss kind of moves, or particularly if you're fighting between adds, she may just be holding that sniper shot while she's trying to move into the next shot, and then she'll get that extra time to get the buff for holding the full charge longer. So this happens a lot more often than I think people are realizing. Now, if you're a full manual player, if you're trying to go for a high score in raids, you're going to be manualing most of the time anyway. And so you can just control this exactly as you need. But just otherwise, if you're just trying to like be kind of casual with her, just keep in mind you can hold that extra shot, after her burst one time, and then let her do her thing until the next burst, and rinse and repeat. And then a lot of times, even if you full auto her, you'll kind of accidentally get this buff You know, this can happen a lot more often. You know, the only time this isn't going to happen at all is if a boss is just like dead still and you're like on target onto the core or whatever, and she's just like firing repeatedly over and over and over again. Otherwise, there's oftentimes going to be a delay. More than I think a lot of people realize. So let me know what you think. I think Milk is a pretty cool character. I've always kind of liked her, and I was tempted to buy her like camo skin way back in the day, but I just had a rule where I wouldn't buy any skins if it didn't come with a pass or extra resources. So and I also kind of liked her treasure, even though people said it was trash. I don't know. I think it's exciting to see Milk finally maybe get some respect that she deserves, and I'm gonna have fun using her. I'm gonna be pulling for her. Let me know what you think. Remember to subscribe, and you can get that next video of Aid coming out right after this, and we'll talk about how good she is. Spoiler, she is good.